Hi, my name is Azad Lassiter. I'm the Real Estate Development Project Manager at Urban Homeworks. And today I'm going to take you on a tour of a passive house. You might be asking yourself, what is a passive house? And that's a great question. A passive house is an ideology or a building system that has 5 different principles. Those 5 principles are really great thick insulation, really great passive windows, really airtight assembly, thermal bridge reduction, and really great ventilation strategy. So our first principle is thermal insulation, and really how that shows up in the house is really, really thick walls. So here I have a little piece of our walls. As you can see, this is 12 inches thick, and that provides a really high R value for us.
So our traditional wall may have an R value of R13 to R21. This wall has an R value of over R60, and this panel helps us achieve that.
Thermal bridging. The idea behind thermal bridging is that we are wrapping this entire house in insulation so that none of the cold or heat from the outside can come through in a less insulated area. And the structurally insulated panel that we just showed you helps, among other products, helps wrap this thing entirely in insulation. One of the really great aspects of passive housing is passive housing windows, or the need for really, really great windows. And so a lot of the passive windows are triple pane windows, and they're also just really airtight. The entire window really thermally has a really great R value, and is really airtight. These are European style windows, which are called tilt turn. The Europeans are ahead of U.S. manufacturing in the type of windows that they produce, and they operate a little bit differently. They open like this. That's the turn. And then they also operate in a different way, like that, and that's the tilt. Airtightness is one of the most important principles of a passive house. When we talk about a leaky house, a leaky old house, this is what we're talking about. Losing energy through little cracks and crevices in your building envelope. That's not what we want. And so in my house, for example, I lose so much air through the windows, through the cracks, under, everywhere. And passive house is specifically designed to be super, super airtight. They have a metric that measures this. It's called air changes per hour. And so 1 air change per hour is the entire air in your whole house gets replaced every 1 hour. And what we heat is the air. And if we're constantly replacing it, that's not energy efficient. And so Minnesota code says that you should have 3 air changes per hour. So every 20 minutes, you're replacing and reheating the air in your house. That's not really efficient. Passive house says we want it to be 0.6 air changes per hour. So that is 10 times better than the house that I live in. And that's significantly better than the Minnesota code. So airtightness is a key to energy efficiency and to durability. All right, so we had talked about how airtight we want the home, right? Some of you may be wondering, what if it's too airtight? Couldn't I suffocate? That's a great question. And so, yes, we do want our homes to be airtight. We also want to bring in filtered, tempered air into the space. We want to bring fresh air into the space so we can breathe. And so we do that through some HVAC equipment called an ERV or an HRV. It's basically a box that brings in fresh air from the outside, and then it gets rid of the stale air on the inside of the house. And so it filters that, and then it tempers it so the air it's bringing in is close to room temperature. All right, so we talked about the 5 principles of passive housing, but what does that mean to someone who lives in this house? And so it means a few things. It means really, really reduced energy bills. So your utility bill is going to be slashed. We expect these homes to save $200 to $300 on their utility bill every single month. And that does not include the solar panels that we hope to put on these houses, which would cut the utility bill completely to zero for electricity. All of that really wraps up to a really low total cost of ownership. When we talk about a mortgage, we always think, affordable housing, like it's not just the mortgage. As we just kind of saw here, like we can reduce the utility bills so much that it makes a huge impact in the monthly budget of anyone. And we really think that the passive housing is going to do great things for the total cost of ownership and reducing that total cost of ownership and providing an even more affordable home than was possible before. The second thing is that these homes are healthier than normal homes. We talk a lot about air quality now, and we talked a lot about the air tightness of the house, and then we talked about the ventilation of the house. So those two components combined will create a much higher air quality for those that live in the house. And when we talk about childhood asthma, when we talk about the bad air quality that we have, whether it's wildfires, whether it's COVID, these homes are just healthier homes to live in. The last part we didn't really talk about is our community. How does this affect the broader community? If we continue to build houses and consume energy the way we have, that is not good for our climate. Passive housing and net zero housing is the future in protecting our climate and our community for the future. And so we feel like if we continue to build these houses this way and more people catch on, that we can work on our climate goals. If you want to learn more about passive housing, head on over to anywhere you get your podcasts. We've got a great podcast out that goes really in depth into passive housing. If you're interested in supporting this work, you can hit us up at urbanhomeworks.org/donate. Thanks so much for coming on this tour of the Passive House. Maybe we can get you to come to an in-person tour later this summer. Thanks a lot.